Alright, we got a 2017 Nissan Rogue here. I'm going to be showing you how to remove or replace the passenger side CV axle over here. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first thing up, we're going to chalk the rear tire here. Alright, we got our 21 millimeter. Go ahead and get these broke loose. Okay, just to show you where I'm lifting it from here. Okay, first thing we're going to deal with is this heavy duty cotter pin right here. We're just going to get that as straight as we can get it. Let's get our castle nut off there. So you can use a 32 millimeter, or you can use an 1.25 inch, which I'm going to use because it's the heaviest 3/4 socket I have. Okay, before we can take that loose, we're going to put the wheel back on and use the wheel to hold this still. We're going to punch this center cap right here. Very easy, just punch that out. Now I'm only going to put a couple of these on here, it'll be sufficient to hold it while we break the axle nut loose. We're going to lower the weight back down here. Okay, so I've got the 3/4 drive and 3/4 drive breaker bar. I have broken a couple of 1/2 inch breaker bars on these axle nuts, so I don't use those unless they're not really tight. Now we get the cheater bar down here on the end. So there we have it. So I'm going to stand out here and see how hard this is to break loose. Alright, not too bad. These are supposed to call for 188 foot-pounds. I don't even believe that was 188. Alright, so I'm going to just go ahead and lift it back up again and we'll get the wheel off. Alright, I'm not going to remove it just yet. You see I've got this nut flush with this right here. I'm going to take some penetrating oil, WD-40. So I'm just going to take my big socket. I'm going to start out with my shot filled mallet. Alright, so it's not seized in there. Now I can't say that yours is going to be that easy. Okay, so if it was seized worse, this is what I would do. I would put this on here and I would use my 8-pound sledge and proceed to knocking it loose with this. So it's just going to depend on how much corrosion you have. Right. So that is what you want to see. Next thing I'm going to do is pop this ABS cable so it's got some slack. Now the next thing I like to do is just go ahead and remove this whole caliper so I'm not tugging on the line, it's not getting in the way, and I just prefer to remove it. And for these you're going to need a breaker bar and a cheater pipe. They're going to be very tight. Alright, so that's a 19 millimeter right there. I'm going to go ahead and just try to turn it. Okay, and initially I had to stand on that on a foot to get that to move. So these are usually about 120, 130 foot-pounds. Got the top one, go ahead and get on the lower. So I've got it broke loose. We'll go ahead and switch over to the ratchet here. I'm going to get a hand on it here. Alright, we're going to attempt to just set this whole thing over here on this button. Just make sure that it's going to be stable. Alright, I think it'll set there. Alright, so here's our pinch bolt. And we have the nut on this side. Doubt this is the original. Then we have the bolt head on this side. So we're going to have to hold this and turn the other. Alright, so we're going to have to hold this other side and we'll try to turn this here. I've got an 18 and I believe a 16 on this other side. I don't know if yours is going to be the same. I think this bolt has been replaced. This is not very tight either. I may, in fact, try to find a better bolt than this. I've got a whole bin of bolts I saved just for this occasion. This doesn't even it's working, but I don't really like it. Not a very good washer on here either. Well, this ball joint looks destroyed down here, so that's something else I'm going to have to take a look at. So the first thing I like to do is get a 3-foot crowbar and just kind of go through here. I'll put a rag just kind of keep it from sliding around. And we'll attempt to move it this way first. So another thing you're going to want to do is get that with some penetrating oil. Sometimes you can spread this right here and it helps out. So take you a little screwdriver and kind of pry in there a little bit. So it's sometimes, not always. Okay, and if I don't have any luck with that, I take my aluminum cheater pipe and I come down here and I lay it somewhere where I can get a hold of something. Then I like to try to hit the end. Now I may have to actually get something shorter here because this is a little bit too long in this case. Okay, never mind. I think I can get on this lip down here on the front. Alright, let me get you down here. Let me see what's going on there. Alright, so we got it loose. Okay, now that I got it loose, I'm going to go back to my crowbar. Just pop back in. As you can see there, got it out. So yeah, I'll have to come back in like pretty soon and do this. I didn't even know this was a problem here. Okay, so that is the first step. Now we're going to come around here and look back here. And you'll notice we got a couple of bolts there, 13 millimeters, I do believe. And we're going to get a long extension and go up there and get them, and then we'll just be able to slide this right out here. I'm going to put me a pan down here. Mess with a lot of different cars. I'm not 100% certain that this is not going to drain a little bit of fluid out of here. Now I had a jack stand at the back here. I wanted to just make sure, because I don't know if I mentioned it, make sure that you have a jack stand under here before you ever get under the car as soon as you get it jacked up. Okay, so I got a 2-foot extension, extended handle ratchet, and it's got my 13 millimeter. So we're just coming right over the top here. We get this lower one. Alright, let's go ahead and break the top loose. Top one, I'm just coming right up and over this. Let's go ahead and spin these out. that one's completely loose. May, in fact, have to get my magnet. So this goes like that. Now I would also point out you can separate this here, I do believe, on this car, but it is much more difficult to do that. This one is seized. I'm going to try to get up here and hit it with some penetrating oil and see if it's going to help. Okay, so this CV axle is really seized in here. It's not going to budge. I've tried to pop it out, pry it out. Didn't want to get too rough. Went underneath, tried hitting it from the other direction. Still not going to move. So I just wanted to prepare you in case yours is the same worst case scenario. There's a couple of 16mm bolts right there. There's a couple that are right there. And then there's one 18 right down here. Now, I just started taking those out and said you may not have to do this. This is what I'm doing, and we're just going to pull this whole bracket that's going to the engine. So I was using a long extension for these two back here, and then I was just coming in here with the ratchet and just getting the other ones up using my extended handle ratchet. They've all been easy to get to. So this has got the upper ones, and we just got to get the one on the lower there. Right now, so this should have it loose here. Alright, so there's the lower 18. Okay, so I have the drain pan down there. We're going to see what we can do with this. If we do lose any fluid, it's going to go into my pan. Now, I've got this oil cooler in the way, and I think we may have to get this out of the way as well. It's only going to move this far. So I'm just going to work on these 10mm here. Or I got my extension here, it's working a little better. We've got a couple more over here. I'll give you a view in just a second. Okay, so you can see we've got the two up here, and there was one right back there that my ratchet just fell off of. So you got to really reach in here to get these. But essentially we're going to take these loose, and then we can just flop this over out of the way. Okay, so I have pulled 5 bolts, 10mm. Now, have your pan under there, and just note you're going to have oil coming out of here, and there is a seal right there. So hopefully you won't have to do this, but if you do, just be mindful that the seal's supposed to be on there, but it's stuck to that, so need to get that off. Get back on the oil cooler there. Carefully pull that out so we don't damage our seal. This Okay, there's that whole piece. There was no CVT fluid coming out. So this is where it's seized up. We need to see about separating this. Okay, so I want to show you my setup here. I've got it set on some wooden blocks, and what I'm doing is hitting the aluminum bracket there. And I also sprayed this around it with it upright, kind of allowed it to work its way in there. And I'm also, if it gets really bad, you can hit it with a torch, just a butane torch, heat it up a little bit. I've not had to do so on here as of yet. So this passenger CV axle is one unit. So essentially what we're doing is we're just removing this CV axle. This bearing part is pressed into the aluminum housing. So you want to just start hitting it, but you also, so you want to use a shot filled rubber mallet. You want to rotate it, hit it evenly, so you're not just banging on one side there. But you can see how much we got it moving. I'll put a little more of this on here. So with the rubber mallet, we're not going to do any damage to the aluminum. Okay, you can see we almost got it here. Rotate it. Just a little more. Right. So there we have it. See, we just pushed that right off of there. Alright, so there we have it. I said I worry, using the pry bar that will do damage to this aluminum here, so I didn't want to get too rough with that. Now, before you put your replacement in, you want to probably take like some Scotch pad, clean this up a little bit. We're also going to grease this, and you want to also grease the bearing itself. That way, the next time this will come out, it should come out way easier than that. So we'll just take a Scotch pad, we'll come in here, we'll clean this up really good, get all this corrosion out of here. So when you put this back together, you got your replacement. Be sure and grease this really well, and then you won't have this problem if you need to remove it again. I'm going to grease all around this bearing too. Slip it back on just like that. Right, so we're just going to start tapping this. I'm going to stand it back up, and this will just fall back in place too. So once it's cleaned up, I just barely tapped it on there. That's what it should do. Alright, so now that I know this is going to go on and off like it's supposed to, I'm going to go ahead and take it over to the car. We'll put this bracket on. Right, I got the seal back on that oil cooler. I'll get it back up here. So I've got 5 of these. I'm just going to snug them up. They're not very big bolts. I probably wouldn't go more than 80 inch-pounds. So get the other ones in here. Alright, we got those snugged up. We're going to get our bracket in place here. Get these loosely in place. We want to start tightening the ones. We want to tighten them kind of all at once. We want to start snugging the ones up next to the transmission side there first. So I'll start snugging these here down first. And then we'll come over here to these, pull these up. Now I'm on the 18 here, so we'll go ahead and torque these. So I'm going to go 45 on the big one here. We're going to do 35 on all of these 16s. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and start getting our CV axle back in. You want to make sure to have clean fluid on your seal up there for your CV axle. Alright, let's get it lined up. Alright, went right in there with just a little push. Alright, we'll get our retainer. Little notch is going to go up to the top there, just like that. Torque these to about 25 foot-pounds. You want to take the time to grease these splines up so they're not seizing up. All right, so we should be able to. Alright, so we got it lined up. We're just going to tap it back up in here. Alright, well this, I never did find a bolt that was any better than this, but this one here, put a good washer on it. And getting ready to slide it through here. Now I do have a Teflon locking nut. Let's put that with a washer. Okay, I did find another one after all. That one that was on there is no good. So this bolt actually fits on here much tighter until I can get an original bolt. This in here probably work just fine. All right, we're going to torque this to 52 foot-pounds. Alright, ready to get these back on our caliper. We're going to torque these to 120 foot-pounds. Alright, so we're going to get the tire on. We're just going to put a couple of lugs. Okay, we got a couple of lugs snug down. We got our jack stand out. We're going to go ahead and lower the vehicle back down. Okay, these call for 185. If your torque wrench doesn't go up high enough, what you can do, get it as high as you can get and get your breaker bar. Just turn it a little bit more. All right, we're going to go ahead and raise it back up, get our wheel back off once we've got it torqued. All right, now let's go ahead and bend this back over. Get our tire back on. All right, we're going to go ahead and torque these to 85 foot-pounds. Alright, so that's going to do it on this video, replacing this passenger side CV axle. I hope that you found it helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.